Hey everyone, welcome to another live coaching call with Needle Marketing. We have an extra special call today because we have our very first hot seat guests here from Illinois. Yes, you guys are in Illinois.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, awesome. So we have Beth and Heidi from Illinois. And Beth, you are the admissions director,
I am.
right? And Heidi, you're kind of like the tech person, right? So you work on the website, but you also have some other roles and you collaborate with Beth in admissions.
I imagine many schools, people end up doing things they didn't expect to do. I described it to Cassim as scotch tape and a lot of love.
Yeah,
So whatever that needs to be is what I'm helping with.
Heidi's my right hand. She does everything, and we're so grateful to have her with us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you're joining us to kind of put yourself out there in the process of really figuring out sales. And you mentioned you'd been focusing on that for the past 2 or 3 months. And you just want to get some thoughts, advice, ideas, and workshop it.
Great.
Yeah, awesome. And then Qasim, of course, is here as well. And I know he's got a bit of a structure here, but we really want this to be more of a conversation. We want you ladies to get as much as you can out of it, as well as our live attendees, so that, you know, what this process really looks like is not clear cut, right? It can be messy, it can be tricky, it can be difficult, but we're hoping to give you the time and the space to be able to really nail down your sales process.
Thank you.
Awesome. Qasim, I'll turn it over to you.
That's great. So I think the way to treat this is maybe one part consultation. And if I were starting just with the consultative discussion, I think what I want to do is to make sure that I'm providing as much value as possible is maybe have you voice some of your specific pain points. And the way I like to do that is flash me forward to the end. So if the world were perfect, like if we left this meeting and then you got off of it and the next day somebody said, hey, how did that call with Needle Marketing go? And you said, oh my goodness, it was amazing. We learned, or we did, or we had, like, what would that end result look like? And I'm going to be taking notes as you're talking.
I didn't get something. Do you want to talk?
You go ahead.
Okay. I will say a pain point for me right now is we're kind of taking a step back and looking at all the steps in our process. And one of the things that we had was a push to increase enrollment. And as a result of that, we took in some kids that we probably shouldn't have. I'm a Montessori graduate myself, and you know, we absolutely want to reach out to all kids and follow the child, but there are some children that it's not a good fit. And they end up taking a lot of energy. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So we're trying to get better about, yeah, I don't like the word screening, but effectively screening. And part of that, I think, is trying to create a process wedge between application and enrollment. Because right now we have pretty much rolled them into two, the two things into one, right? So you do the application and there's this kind of let's do the deposit now, let's get you in, so forth and so on, right? So we've thought about some steps. We've done 3-day visits sometimes, particularly for elementary students. But there's this, you know, if we're all about like getting people to the tour, right? But at the end of the tour, you give them the tuition information. And then there's this kind of put something down, right? And so is that the right stage to put something down? Do you want people to go away and think about it? Do you want them to put down, you know, a $50 fee, but not the full deposit? Or do you just like, yes, strike while the iron is hot, let's sign these people up? So you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, I'm not sure how other schools handle that.
It's interesting because from a process perspective, I think it's really heavily dependent on the situation the school's in. Because we have heard this before, that when we drive to increase admissions, and it happens a lot with Google Ads, actually, we start running Google Ads for a brand new school and they get all these amazing inquiries, and they're used to just kind of letting people come in because generally the inquiries used to be from, you know, warm referrals and more organic sources. And the paid traffic isn't quite as vetted, screened. And then so that intermediary step, and I don't know that we've ever helped anybody establish that, but the very first thing that popped into my head, Matt Hillis at Bergamo uses the word mission appropriate. And so the thing that pops into my head is maybe having kind of like the mission appropriate checklist. And we have our, and I think it's short, but we have our 3 to 5 prerequisites in order to really align with our school, and, you know, to both not just receive value, but also contribute value. We need families to do these 3 things or these 5 things. And these are absolute musts, and we can't compromise. And I think that's probably different for every school, especially because, you know, based off of program. And you might have like a tier 2. These are our must-haves and these are our nice-to-haves. And what's nice about that is you end up with, and I can't believe I'm going to say this on a call with a group of Montessorians, but you end up with something of a report card because, you know, I mean, at the end of it, you have weighted averages and not to sterilize it too much, but I think this could be really important. If we've been able to prioritize the importance of each of these criteria, then with numerical application, then you'd get to the end with the total number. So, you know, let's say that each of our must-haves are worth 5 points, and then each of our nice-to-haves are worth 2 points. Well, at the end of it, I know, okay, this family is X mission appropriate out of X. And when I'm looking at my waiting list, it now gives us the opportunity to, in a pretty analytical fashion, say, you know, at arm's length, okay, we think this person is going to be a better contribution to our community, and this is the family we're going to go with. Have I offended anybody yet? Does this sound too much like application-based eugenics?
It's facts.
Well, one of the fascinating things is that Beth is an amazing director of admission. I get to say that now. And she has a sixth sense. She can smell, kind of like, so she knows families coming in, and particularly when you get a chance to be around the students, and that's often, and so one of my jobs is to try to translate that into criteria or a process, or we're just trying to make that more concrete. It's something that other people can, you know. So I absolutely hear you. One of the things we were thinking about starting is a questionnaire that people would fill out along with their application, and then as we're reviewing their application, we're going to review the questionnaire at the same time. And it sounds similar. Can I ask you, is your checklist an internal document, or is that something you share with people?
I think the output is an internal document, but I think that you have to share a facet of it with people in order to get the information that you would want without you having to play proxy. I love the idea of a questionnaire. I would almost, and I don't know how, actually, I was going to say I would almost want that to be pre-tour, but then you don't give them the benefit of having your school sort of in their mind, that influence. If you don't mind, I'd have a question for you, Beth, with your sixth sense, which is awesome, by the way. And I totally believe that. I can see how, you know, being in that environment and meeting so many people, you just sort of start to kind of get a feel for it. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Blink, and he talked about how we build kind of like these profiles, and you know, like somebody who really understands art was able to look at a sculpture and know instantly that it was a fake, even though it got past everybody else's, and it was small things like the way the fingernail was carved. And so that weird analogy lends itself to say that, you know, it makes a lot of sense. I'd be curious though, is when you start to see that, like, what's the very first catalytic point where you know, oh, this is or this is not a good fit? Where's that threshold?
Well, first of all, I make sure that they bring the child with them. So when Heidi's talking about the ones that we accepted that were not a good fit, were actually tours that either I didn't do myself or they did not bring the child with them. And at the time, we didn't have a policy where we were insisting the child come. Now we're going to insist that the child comes, because then we get to see how the child interacts with mom and dad. And I just can tell whether this child is going to fit or not, usually just within the first 5 minutes. I also can tell by the questions that the parents are asking me. I can just feel the energy around them. I can just feel whether they'd be a good fit for our school. I can't really explain in words how I know. I just know. We usually click. I did 2 tours this week, and they were walking out the door handing me money, and they were a good fit, so I took it. If I get some that I feel are iffy, I might tell them that, you know, we have a waiting list. We'll get back to you. You know, and I just kind of string them along like that, because I kind of know that they either need a visit, because I'm pretty sure the teachers are not going to find this as a fit.
Beth, would you do you have some examples of what kind of questions parents would ask that you're like, no, this is not a good
Okay, sometimes when they start asking stuff like, do you have a hot lunch program? And they kind of want to know things like what can you get for free? Um, you know, do you provide the wipes? Do you provide the meals? Do you provide this? You know, they're kind of wanting to be here for a bargain, and we're not about a bargain. We're about education for life. And I just can kind of tell that they've just heard about us, and they just want a deal. But, you know, do you have financial aid? What kind of deals can you give me? And I can kind of tell, well, they're not really wanting to be here. They're just wanting to see what kind of deal they can get for childcare for free for a while.
Do you also notice in the conversation the absence of questions like, tell me more about what's happening in this classroom?
Absolutely.
Or what
Absolutely.
why do you have something?
Right. They don't even ask about how the kids learn, the unique learning style plans. They don't ask any of those kind of questions. They just want to see the classroom. They might want to know how many students or teachers are in the room. You know, I have to say, so many tours I get are a good fit. I rarely, you know, we're talking about the real small minority of cases.
So, but partly that's before we've started our Google ad campaign. We are 10% maybe left to do before that goes live, and I think our life is going to change.
Yeah, our life's going to change, and I'll probably get, yes.
We're still kind of wrapping our heads around how do we,
Handle
is there
the
a way
volume.
to, how do we handle the volume, but also is there a way to pre-screen before a tour? Because a lot of people who come to us know about Montessori in a way, or
well, they've emailed me first. Usually they come to me, they've emailed me. They've gone through our website, so that usually they've emailed me through our website. And when they email me, then I can kind of see what they're looking for. They tell me, you know, what their child age is and what they're, you know, what they're looking for. And then they usually ask tuition. And I'm really upfront about giving tuition. I want them to see what it is. So that's why my tour rate is very successful, because I usually get the ones that come in, they've already know up front how much it is, and they come in and they sign on. It's no sticker shock. Now, our administration wants to change that this year. They want to not let them know the price. They want everybody coming in. And I'm not really for that, because I think we're going to get the volumes, and it's not going to be a good fit. That's my concern. I don't know how other schools do it, but I'm very much like, if you want me to drive the Mercedes, I need to know how much it costs, because you can bring me to the dealership and have me test drive that car, and I can love it all I want. But if it doesn't fit in my budget, I'm not going to be happy that you wasted my time not telling me how much it is. That's just how I am. Now, there's other perspectives that say, well, they might be able to ask their grandparents or family members, get them to fall in love with the school, just get them in, and they'll find a way if they really want to come. So that's another perspective, which is totally valid. But I'd rather just deal with the ones I know can afford it. And it seems like that's been working, and our enrollment's been going up ever since we've been with you guys. Our enrollment has increased tremendously from the website. So I have to thank you guys so much for everything you've done for us. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, thank you for saying that, Beth. We're grateful to you, grateful to have you. I tend to agree with you. I think that the presentation of the tuition on the front end is helpful. I also think that it really depends on where a school is with admissions. So if, you know, admissions at, you know, a brand new school, let's say, or you really need to fill seats, I think it's okay for a school to want to get people in the door first so they can kind of sell the story a little bit. But if that's not the case, and it doesn't sound like it is here, I think you're absolutely right. Matt at Bergamo, again, going back to him, because he tends to be kind of my gold standard because he's such a brilliant marketer. But when somebody schedules a tour, he sends them the tuition rates in his email nurture. And he says, and he started doing that because they were getting bombarded with tours. And then they would show up and not necessarily be mission appropriate or have an issue with the financial information. So he would send a follow-up email with the tuition information. And he said that sometimes he sees a tour get scheduled, the email goes out, and then the tour gets canceled. And that's actually kind of probably a good thing. You know, I mean, like, that's like, just keeps everybody on the same page. So I'm going to open it up real quick for a question that Gabby asks. She says, what about very anxious parents? How do you screen them? An example, those who don't want to leave their child or say goodbye at the door, or those who find it difficult to let the child be independent.
Okay. Well, we have a drop off where we have the parent drop the child off. So right away we try to nip that in the bud in the beginning. So they drop their child off, and then we tell them they can go park and look in our viewing windows. So the anxious parent might not like that, but we say that, you know, mommy goes to work, your child goes to school. This is how we do it. And that's just the rules. You have to do it this way. And then they can go park and watch their child. But usually they see their child goes in and is fine, and they get over it after a while. But they can be anxious all they want, but they can watch from the window, and they love knowing that they can watch from the window. Does that help?
I also see this as a learning opportunity. You know, if we think about how little, how we only have like what 2 or 3% of schools in the whole country. So most parents that are coming to us have had a very different experience about what parenting looks like. And so a lot of parents are going to struggle with that piece, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be a struggle for you through their entire journey. I see that as an opportunity to really speak during the tour about independence and how you create independence throughout your entire program. Because that's a pain point for them. And it's also an opportunity to show some awareness around who you are and what you do. And then you can kind of test out and see how they respond. If they're incredibly resistant, that's a red flag, right? They're not open to learning, you know, what principles and values you do offer in your program. And that could be another note that you make when you're making your decisions.
That's true. I usually, during the tour, I let them see the independence. I'll say, oh, look at the child drinking out of the glass in there. You know, look at, she's preparing her own snack in that window. So I really talk about the independence, and most of them are, oh, I'd love for my child to be independent. Oh, this is wonderful. Yes. Oh, yes, I'd love to put things back on the shelf. And this is just wonderful. I mean, usually they just love it. You know, whether they're really going to practice it once they get home is another story, but they love seeing it, and they love seeing the tour I gave yesterday. They just saw the flow of the room and how the kids were just so quiet and interacting and so focused, and they were just so amazed because they'd just come from another school in the area where it was chaos and the kids were running all around and, you know, fighting with each other. And they asked, how do you handle discipline? And then I said, well, we just redirect. And then they were watching in the window and they said, I guess you don't even have discipline problems. I go, oh, well, we have our share, but it's probably not what you're used to. So
sure. Christina also chatted in, she said, I find that if somebody touring uses specific Montessori language, it means they did their research on what to say to impress me, and it's usually not a good sign. So I'm curious, Christina, if you wouldn't mind chatting in, when you see that as not a good sign, how does that play out in your interactions with them? Because if that's not a good, I mean, so clearly you have an impression in your community that there are particular things that we look for in our families. So I wonder if there's some competition within families that are looking to come to your school because they have to do the research too. Do you have that experience, Heidi?
Beth knows more than I do. I personally would be impressed. The ones I worry about are the ones who, the first question is about financial aid or tuition, and there's no Montessori talk, right? It's just, I'm looking for childcare.
right.
So if people have looked at our website, that's another thing that people will email her and they say, I want tuition information. It's like, well, it used to be on our website, and if they looked at our website, they would have found it. It's not there now, but so I would see that as a good sign myself. I don't know if you agree with that.
So if it's a good sign,
If someone's done their research and uses Montessori buzzwords.
oh, if they use Montessori buzzwords and terms, then I assume that they know quite a bit about Montessori, and I'm actually impressed that they do know a little, you know, more. Then I know I can adjust my language a little better, because usually I use layman's terms to most everyone. I don't use the Montessori buzzwords at all. I want to relate to them as at their level, and I can tell right away by the way they speak to me what they know and what they don't know. I mean, the man yesterday was so blown away by the things we were doing. He was just like, wow, I never heard of this. Wow, this is the most amazing thing ever, you know. And you know, so I knew that I had to stay at his level. I couldn't, you know, I'd say, you know, I wouldn't say we have multi-age. I say we have children of ages from 3 to 6 in a classroom. I don't use, you know, the buzzwords. I just talk to the way I know he can relate to me.
Can I pause there just briefly? Because it's something we've touched on before, but I think it's so critically important to this topic, in particular, the sales topic. Because Montessori, like every industry ever, but it's very jargon rich. And when my wife and I were touring schools, it was overwhelming. So much so that I feel like we lost a lot of the value. So what you just said, I think is really brilliant. And I applaud you. Just bringing things down to layman's terms, I think is critically important and a good lesson from a sales perspective.
Right. I know I have to do that because, I mean, really, when you talk to people, you have to talk it in language that that they're going to understand. With anything, whether it's sales or just anybody that you meet to talk in ways that they can understand.
And I'm going to come back to one of the things Denise said earlier, which was about outcomes and benefits. And I think that's where I've been doing the most thinking is I've started looking at, there's some great neato social media content, thank you so much, on alumni for today and yesterday. And so I'm trying to work backwards from alumni and talk about, here's what, and I'm stealing this from the white papers on your site also, this kind of where do you want your child to be in 20 years? What kinds of personal habits, character, facets of character are we trying to build? And then trying to work back to, this is where it starts. An adult who can plan out their own work is a child who has an experience of choosing their own work, right? And so if I can, instead of just saying as we're working on a Google ad campaign with New Branch Films, Eric, who's been working with us, keeps telling us, bring it back to the benefits for that parent. So not just the features, like we have a multi-age classroom, but like, what do they get out of the multi-age classroom?
Right.
It's about building cooperative relationships. It's about working collaboratively. It's peer teaching. It's leadership. It's
right. But what I say in a way that they can understand is I say the older kids are role models and they teach to the little ones, and the little ones get inspired and they look up to what the older ones are doing, and the younger ones will do more than what they would do if they didn't see the older ones doing it. So I would say it, in language like that. I wouldn't say it as brilliant as you do.
No, it's not. It's two ways of saying.
But Heidi is our Yale master's graduate here, and
she Montessori beginning.
And she went to Montessori. She is our Montessori prodigy child. So
I credit Montessori a great deal with is kind of being able to do things in different fields.
Right.
Well, I'm going to embarrass Heidi a little bit.
Living example of a Montessori child that can do everything.
Well, she's a prolific writer too, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm trying to highlight benefits. One of the things we did recently was a move-up night where we invited.
What night? I'm sorry.
Move up night. So if you were a kindergartner, you went and visited the first grade classroom. So
for second and third grade.
For second and third.
Oh, how fun.
Third graders, you visited the fourth.
If you were a toddler, you visited the early childhood room. If you were an infant, you visited the toddler room. So it was every level was a move up for that night. So all the teachers were available in their rooms, and then the parents were invited. We had childcare provided because we noticed if we don't have childcare, we don't get parents to come. So that's a big thing at our school now. We do childcare for every event just because then our parents are more likely to come if we have a room with childcare. So it was a big success, pretty much everybody. And this was a way, because, we're starting re-enrollment, so that we want them to see what the next level is all about. And so by coming to move up night, they could see, oh, this is what my child's going to be doing next year if I stay. So
one of the things we did with that was have everybody start in our middle school room. And there was debate about that. Well, doesn't it make more sense to start with the infants and work your way up, and the last thing of the night is, and I said, they're going to be out the door once they've seen their classroom. So let's get everybody in on taking a good look at what middle school or whatever the highest grade is, so that we get this kind of outcome. This is where your child will be. I know your child is in diapers now, but your child is going to be doing this, and try to lock that long-term thinking, which is so hard. I have small kids, and long-term thinking is difficult. It's hard to imagine them being older. So
is this a normal thing for Montessori schools, or did you all invent move-up night?
As our assistant head of school did it. This is the first year we've done it.
This is the first year we have done it, but our assistant head, she's done it before at other Montessori schools. So other Montessori schools have done it.
It's so smart because you're helping people begin with the end in mind, and you're crafting a narrative. And I bet you from a retention standpoint, it just really helps, kind of engage that segue.
Right, we're hoping so. And we know where our drop-off points are. We know it's the kindergarten year, and then it's the first grade year, and then it's the 7th grade.
Because that's when they go to public school. Those are our drop-off points. And then we also, we did this year was something new, is a kindergarten bridge program, which all the children that are 5 and 6 kindergarten age right now, 2 days a week for 2 hours, they go in another room, actually an elementary room, and they're being bridged, and it's for free. We're doing it for free, pro bono, because we want to keep them, because usually we lose them this year. But now they can come home and say, this is what I've learned, in the elementary classroom. This way, next year when they come into elementary, which we're hoping that, we'll get them to stay now, they'll already be familiar with the room and the materials, and they won't be so afraid. And we're hoping by doing this bridge program that we'll be able to keep them, because we have been losing them.
That is so smart too. I really love that. That's great because everybody's drop off. We have a blog on the importance of the kindergarten year, and that's everybody's big cliff.
Right. So we're doing it free. I mean, it's just 2 hours in the afternoon, but I'm saying we're doing it free, but I don't really think we're doing it free, because I think the benefits that we're going to get out of it are going to outweigh the cost involved in it right now of paying the other teacher for doing it.
That is so good. I love Move Up Night. I love the Kindergarten Bridge program. I actually want us, and Deneen, I'll work on this. I want us to build collateral on both of these for our members. Would that be acceptable? Am I overstepping my bounds here to take something and try to bottle it for other Montessori schools?
Of course.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome to do it. We've obviously taken it from other Montessori schools ourselves. I can't claim full credit for the ideas.
Oh, and Gabby just asked, what do you do during Move Up Night? Which I think was maybe answered in the interim, but I just wanted to make sure that question was voiced too. Sorry, Gabby, I'm not doing the Q&A well.
So we started with everyone in the 8th grade room. We were crunched on time because we decided that our childcare limited our time. So if you don't have that limitation, you can do more. But then so the idea was to present a little bit about the middle school program, which is unique, and then everyone followed their teacher down to the classroom they would be moving up into. So I can tell you a little bit about the elementary, because that's the one I know best. And so one of our teachers talked about how elementary was the stage where we moved from concrete to abstract. And so she gave a presentation about what your child is going to be learning and how it's going to be different. And I'm sure they were each a little bit different for each level. Each level talked about, what your child is doing now and what it will be doing once it moves up into my level, to the next level. So they were actually going with the new teachers in the new classroom, in the new level, the parents were. And that's one of the things I would be interested in. And I think I'll have conversations with our elementary school teachers when I can, but if you have thoughts or you can direct me anywhere, I'm interested in trying to express the value of the elementary education. I think the preschool is very clear to me, but once we get into elementary, it's a little bit harder to pull. What is it specifically that we want kids to get out of the one through 3, besides continuing all the good things they've been doing? So that's something I'm coincidentally working right now on the importance of the kindergarten year. So I will go check out your blog. Then I'm bringing together some different sources. And then I'm trying to make the case beyond that of not just staying for kindergarten, but why stay for first, second, third. So that's just what's in my head.
I'd love to lob this at Deneen, but before I do, I want to maybe layer on some more difficulty just to make the conversation interesting. Because as a Montessori parent, my son is 4, and he's moving towards that. And our school goes all the way to 8th grade. But I already have it in my head that, gosh, right after 8th grade, now we're going to take him out of this wonderful, beautiful environment, and we're just going to go dump him in high school. And is he better off with a little preparation?
No.
I totally agree. But
I'll tell you from the perspective of my Montessori school was, I did not go here. I went to a Park River Forest Montessori school, which is no longer in existence. Our school went up through 6th grade. So then my parents had what to do with the kids after 6th grade. And they put me into what they thought would be the best transition, which was a small religious private school. And it was horrible. It was horrible because these kids have been all together since, knee high to grasshopper,
Right.
and I was an outsider, and junior high is a terrible time to be an outsider, and I was wretched. And then mercifully, I got to high school, and I went to an enormous public high school, and I was thrilled because it was so big. I could lose myself. I could work at my own pace. I found my own friends, and I had no problem with a public school. I do hear from parents that, and your son
My son.
had this experience where they're almost over prepared for high school.
Mm.
And one of the things that can happen is they get bored and they start to slack off because they're bored. And then along comes college, and it's like, whoops, I got to rediscover all those study habits. And there's a way in which, if we could continue on until college is like the natural extension of Montessori. It requires many of the same skills. So I've thought about this myself because I have 2 girls going through Montessori right now here. And so I fence it. I fence it between, you go public and they have opportunities that they would never have, particularly in a big public school, right? You can get theater productions, you can do autos, you can whatever, robotics, and I have another part of me that thinks maybe we'll homeschool. Like you can purchase curriculums now, and maybe just keep this as your learning is individual. One of the things that I saw recently, and again, I love the Needle social posts, thank you for doing that, was about six qualities that Montessori children share or something like that. But the one that really struck me was they owned their education. Saying these are kids who will go up to a teacher and ask a question if they don't understand. They take responsibility for understanding. They want to learn for themselves. And I thought, that's incredible, right? Because that's not something you get out of a public school education. Public school is, I had a very creepy experience. I gave an author presentation at a public school to 6th graders. And I had this very strange feeling like I was talking to a room of sound absorbent material. It wasn't just an empty room, and it wasn't a room of people who were not interested. It was actually like sound absorbent. And I have a hard time saying what that means, but there was this kind of like, these are kids who've been taught for so long that they just tuned out, And I think, and so Beth talks sometimes on our tours about keeping the joy of learning alive, but I mean, that's actually critical.
Right. That's my biggest selling point. As I say, our whole goal here is to keep your child's joy of learning alive. We want them to love school. We want them to come here feeling happy every day. And that was my biggest thing when I started working here, as I started seeing that the 6th grade students were coming to school excited and happy. And I was thinking, wow, I was crying back in 1st grade in public school in my days. So I was just amazed that a 6th grader would come to school happy.
Oh, that's
and then on, I was sold.
I do think the pitch is a little bit different for preschool because preschool parents haven't yet figured out their child is at risk.
Right. They haven't.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Of
in
the
their
light
mind,
going out.
Yes. Right. In their mind, my child is just going to love learning. That's just going to happen. Right. It's the elementary ones where
but sometimes I hit their nerve because they know their light. They know their light has gone out. Yeah. They hated school.
Their parents.
Well, actually, Heidi sold me. There's a line here that I wrote down for myself. It's college is the natural extension of Montessori. Yeah. And the minute I heard that, I mean, that makes all the sense in the world to me. And if it requires a little bit of segue pain between 8th grade and college, I think that's palatable. But I love that you said that because as a planner, that really appeals to my sense of purpose and helping guide my little ones.
Well, then if you think about, right, what's the difference between college and high school? Why is college the natural segue, but high school is not, right?
Choice, I imagine.
I think it has a lot to do with choice, right?
And
was that not rhetorical? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. I mean, I really am trying to make sure that I have a kind of gut reaction to what I want, but choice, but also going as fast as you can. I mean, working at your own pace. The self-discipline rather than it being this is your assignment from day to day to day to day kind of thing. So being able to plan your own work. It's also, I think, the complexity of the work being more project-based and less task oriented.
Mhm.
So I'm starting to think, are those things that I can, I think, I mean, partly it depends on your goals, right? If your goal for your child is a specialized one that requires access to a large facility, which has the resources, then that's significant. But is there a way I can like supplement the high school experience myself
Mhm.
as a teacher? I mean, as a teaching my kids, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I haven't made up my mind on that. We did look into this year. We thought, can we extend? Can we make it a ninth grade year? If we have 3-year cycles, can we do 7, 8, 9?
Right, that's the part we didn't understand. Montessori is all about the 3-year cycle, and why do we get up to 7th and 8th grade and not put the ninth in there? And I was like, this is just so weird. And then I find out it's all state laws, and it's the state involved, and it's
Oh,
all
wow.
political, and
Yeah, and she needed to live another lifetime to really, really dive into that
right,
curriculum. And
right.
for sure.
But we're living the lifetime, and we can extend it. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of
I haven't
time.
given up. I'm in a ninth grade. I have
Right.
a list of dream projects, and that's
Right.
on it. But
And we are looking into it. We're interviewing for it. We have teachers training at the Woods, and they do train them for ninth grade. So
and there are some Montessori high schools.
right,
Yeah, we have one as a client actually.
No, great.
Quadret Academy. She does a great job, and it's it's a struggle sometimes to articulate what it is to people, but it's exciting to see her build that.
wow.
Can I comment a little bit just about elementary?
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
sorry, we got a little off topic.
Yeah, I've been so quiet and patient. So one way that I like to look at it, because really you're moving from plane to plane, right? It's a very different plane. So if you look at the first plane, it's about self-construction. And while that's important in elementary, elementary is really social construction. So you are now using your environment as well as your peers to figure out who you are in the grand scheme of things, and being able to advocate for yourself, be able to be flexible, compromise, collaborative. All of those skills are practiced every single day.
What was the first one, Danine? It was social construction from
self-construction.
Self-construction. Thank you.
Yeah, and they build off of each other, right? Because you're still constructing yourself, but you're looking outward now as an elementary child. I will also say elementary children are at their greatest intellectual capacity from 6 to 12. So if they're like, their brain is so elastic and ready to absorb. So once they start to get 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, that's when they can dig into the details of everything. And it is amazing the stuff they come up with when they have the freedom to really drive their education, Heidi, like you were saying. So having that confidence to be able to really find the answer and go even further is what we need in this world particularly. But having that flexibility, having that ability to drive your education at the greatest time of your intellectual capacity. That's elementary right there.
Well,
but I would definitely rope your elementary guides in and ask them, what do you see day in and day out that's so different? And maybe even encourage them to observe in other environments, other elementary classrooms, because sometimes, especially if you've got guides that have been there for a long time, we get in our Montessori world and we forget that there are other experiences and there are schools that do some sort of Montessori in a traditional setting where children have choice, but it's still adult driven. And it's not where children have the autonomy to choose. So yeah, definitely check with them and see what their lists are. But I think you've answered most of it, right? It's just more dialogue that needs to happen to really nail those points that Beth can use, in your admissions. I'm not sure if you do enrollment meetings with your families, but that's what I actually talked with the school last week, and they do it, and it works really well when you're talking to your kindergarten families and you're meeting with them one-on-one and you're reminding them of the benefits of the program moving forward. And you do that every year to reiterate what the purpose of being here for long term is.
Oh, so you do these meetings with current families?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, every year. Because what I've heard, and actually it's interesting, when re-enrollment comes around, if we send our parents paperwork and say, all right, we're like assuming you're coming back. It's really important to, but you don't have the conversation. Sometimes parents can feel a little bit like, oh, well, I had a lot of support at the beginning, but now it's just, I'm expected to keep, re-enrolling. So once we have that meeting with them, to really understand how their perspectives have changed, how their outcomes or what their outlook is on the outcomes that we offer, it keeps that conversation relevant to their transition.
Is the meeting like a conference? Is it like
yes. Yep, with the admin team. I wouldn't pull the guides out for that meeting, but it is a specific enrollment meeting with the families to talk about next year, which, you could incorporate goal setting too, what Qasim was talking about earlier.
Do you have people that don't come and then you clearly know that they're not coming back?
Yes. Yeah, and then right? Like, right. They avoid the conversation. In the Midwest, we tend to be a bit passive aggressive with that, but.
Do you do that in January then, or when do you do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll take that back to our team and let them know that's a plan. That's a good plan.
I have a sales idea, Deneen, that you just gave me from the evil salesperson on the call.
Good. Let's hear it.
Well, I loved hearing that, phase 1 is self-construction, phase 2 is social construction. And I imagine there's, phase 3, 4, 5, 6, et cetera. Or there could be. But what I like about that is anytime anybody starts, imagine walking up to, and this isn't my joke, this is somebody else's, but there's a marketer named Ryan Dice who uses this analogy. Like if you walk to somebody and say, knock, knock, and they say, who's there? And then you walk away, you have just created a niche that they'll never be able to scratch. And it's infuriating in all of our minds. And it's because humans want to finish processes. And so I think it would be really cool if we created something, and hopefully Nito can do this, but I've got here the Montessori Family Life Cycle. And this is a marketing graphic. Ignore what it says though, but imagine if this was something that we gave to parents. So let me zoom in here a little bit just to make sure that it's actually visible. If this is something that we showed parents and we said, hey, phase 1 is self-construction. And in self-construction, we do these, 5, 10, 15 things, et cetera. And then phase 2 is social construction. But every single piece of asset we ever hand them, every, sit down and do the annual reviews or documents or whatever, it's just you add this graphic and all the rest, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are grayed out. And it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be however many. They're grayed out. And then this one is lighting up. And then when we start talking about phase 2, you're handing them things with the next highlighted option, and phase 1 has something that shows that like this is accomplished, this is done. And what we're doing is we're very subtly planting the seed that you are on this journey and you can go to public school, but you quit here.
Right.
And now you're losing the opportunity to move into phase 2, phase 3. And it's a really tiny inclusion. It wouldn't cost anything, but I think it would have a really significant psychological impact if we could continuously just plant this seed that, hey, we've got a process, we've got a curriculum built here that is critically important that we follow. Curious as to whether or not y'all think that would be effective.
Oh yeah,
I think it's
great.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. Another one of my dream projects is I want to rename our lower elementary, which just sounds uninspiring, and call it, I don't know what. But whatever it is that you want kids to get out of that, and social construction is a little technical, I think, but there's really an apples to oranges, right? You're not going to first grade, and you can go to first grade anywhere. You go first grade here, first grade there, but you're going to leadership, or you're going to global citizen, or kind of something.
Well, and it's a community, right? Like you've got a community of 1st through 3rd graders.
Yeah.
And so, maybe even something just like lower community and upper community.
Yeah, I don't even want to call it lower, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I don't like the word lower. I mean, as a sales pitch, like
it sounds.
Anyway, but community, right? You can do 1st grade of community, right? Or you can do, this is their 1st year of community. I think is way more interesting and exciting, and reminds people that it's not an ordinary program. You're the benefit, but it again would focus on benefits, right? And I'm not even crazy about. I don't mean to, because I'm trying to brainstorm off the top of my head while we're talking. I'm not even crazy about the word community, because I'm really trying to tie this to what benefits does your child get from 1 through 3. Can we put that in a word that parents can understand? I would love to see that graphic because I don't have a good sense myself. I mean, I went through Montessori, but I don't have the philosophical, technical vocabulary behind it. I'm trying to read Montessori materials now, and a lot of it's pre-K. But I would love to see that spelled out, and then say to parents, you are on this journey, and I love the idea of filling things in and as you go. And there's an exit ramp, but it's an exit ramp. You're not getting something.
Yeah, and even in Casa, maybe you and I can schedule time to work on this, because I feel like, we could do the phases through your entire program, but inside that circle can be the principles we always operate off of, which is independence and choice. And though, and you keep building that construction around it, and you see how the principles are applied at different levels. But again, you're reminded that that's what feeds into everything that we do, and that helps the parents really get, because by the end of it, they're going to be your greatest advocate. They're going to be the ones that are going out into the world and talking about what your school offered their family and their child and their children. And then, they're going to send people to you and other Montessori schools around the world, which is awesome. That's the ultimate goal, right?
And that's the beauty of our school. We've been almost 45 years open in a school in the community, and we are having a lot of our alumni come back with children and donating to the school, and it's just wonderful to see that they value and love their Montessori education. It's just wonderful to see that now coming. Being 45 years now, we can see that with alumni's children being here now.
Right.
It's really cool.
That's awesome.
I have another question, unless you have more questions for us.
Well, I have to say you've blown me away. I mean, there's so much value.
I feel like we wandered all over the place. I'm really sorry.
No, that's awesome. That's the point of Hot Seat. This last call, it's about this. It's about getting a little messy and collaborative, because it's so easy to just sit in front of the camera and say, this is how you should run your Montessori school, But then when you actually get granular and it's like, hey, we have real problems. And then I say, well, I don't have real solutions because I'm a consultant and we don't really solve problems. So I think this is good. I think this is really helpful. Sorry, but keep going with your question, Heidi.
No, I was going to say another topic that's hot on my mind is preschool fairs. And because we're right in the middle of that season. And fortunately, Beth does most of the talking. She's the people person. But I think you've had a lot of practice with the tour, which is a long form, right? And you get to ask a lot of questions, and you find out what they're interested in. And there's this kind of long conversation that shapes, And what we're finding with the preschool fair is to try to come up with, in layman's terms again, this short pitch for why Montessori.
Right.
And that turns out to be harder than I thought.
Right. You might have 2 or 3 minutes with them before they go to the next.
Yeah, it's short. And then a lot of the things that I would pitch is special. And this was part of the call last week, but I'm still kind of struggling with it myself. A lot of things that I would say were special about our school are things that other people are claiming. So they talk about hands-on learning, for example, or small class sizes, or they teach values. So they're religious school, right? So it's value-based education or something like that. So I can't, when I say hands-on learning, parents are like, yeah. Kind of, if I talk about our school teaches values and the whole child, and they're like, kind of. So it's,
do you guys do preschool fairs? What do you tell them?
I don't know that we have dealt with that as much. Deneen, have you done any preschool fairs?
Yeah, have you done preschool fairs?
I have, as supporting some admissions. It goes back to benefits. Always. It's there. I mean, parents tend to ask specific questions about how we do what we do, and we need to answer those. But if we can shift the conversation to, and then we also, this is what it creates, right? So we have materials that children can explore with, because they can have self-discovery. And when self-discovery comes up, they're able to be joyful about their learning and more motivated to learn more, because they are confident in what they can offer and discover in our environment. And we have materials all over the classroom that allow these opportunities to happen. So yes, hands-on learning, but self-discovery and self-understanding is what motivates joyful learning. So kind of just shifting those questions that you'll always get, because it's so foreign to parents, but helping them see the benefits is going to position your sales conversation and help it.
I'm writing notes right now, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this doesn't have to do with preschool fairs as much as it does. I've done a lot of marketing conferences. And one of the things I've noticed is people are going from booth to booth to booth to booth, having the same conversation 500,000 times, which is, I imagine, something akin to what the preschool fair is. And I think one of the disadvantages you're going to be at is even with your hyper organized parents, they all tend to kind of bleed together. So I don't think the goal at the preschool fair is necessarily to differentiate yourself as much as it is to make sure you have step 2 already established. And so one really important thing might be for a preschool fair to have a hyper compelling lead magnet. And I'm not trying to beat up on the idea from last week, but I think if there was and goal setting might be the wrong word, but if there was like a consultative practice that you had where you said, hey, we do this evaluation or we do this discussion, we do this goal setting where we it takes 20 minutes. It can be done over the phone or over Zoom or whatever. And we just want to learn about you and your child and what your specific outlook. And Heidi, you said some really great questions earlier that I loved, and I'm going to steal. Where do you want your child to be in 20 years? What kind of personal habits are you trying to build, et cetera? But if there was, and that doesn't even necessarily have to be it, but if there was something that you could give them that they walk away with and then reconnects you with them after the fair, because the fair is just a nonstop. I mean, it's like speed dating. So at this speed date, like, it's like, gosh, I kind of remember that person and I sort of remember what they said. But if you can just get something on their calendar that's tangible and lets you recap, like, hey, remember, we're the self-directed people. And they're like, oh yeah. And then, but then there's that connection. I don't know if that's impossible, but I feel like that type of lead magnet would, position you to start at least collecting contact information and
yes, we've been learning as we go. So we now give people a brochure. I'm also giving them a handout about 5 things this and 6 things that Montessori does for you, which is like, if you're really interested, go ahead and read it. We've got a trifold that says, visit our website and schedule a tour. The first time around, I had a laptop ready to go, like, let's schedule your tour now. And what I found was that parents, that was just too much. They didn't want to commit to anything. So what we do now is we're handing out business cards, and this is just Avery business cards, like I printed myself, and nothing official, which has our open house date on it. And then on the back is our contact information and the number 1 questions people want to know, which is
Before care,
after care. Do you have part-time programs? What are your hours?
Right.
Kind of thing. So they've got the key questions answered, and then they've got a come visit us, and then they've had the go to our website, schedule a tour. So I'm hoping to capture them in one way or another. But I have not found people who are like, yes, I want to do this right now. So I don't know how they would react to, let's set up a call, because that might be a little bit pushy, too much for them.
And I'm coming from marketing conferences where we're just nothing but pushy. So that's really good feedback for me.
But I don't know, Cosmo, I think you're onto something. Because I'm thinking about the preschool fairs that I've been at, and offering, with no strings attached, a time to connect with parents about their particular child and what they want for their child, is like a breath of fresh air. And that doesn't, like, people don't offer that at preschool fairs. They offer a lot of collateral and materials, but they don't offer a conversation. And I think parents now more than ever need that. They're busy people, they're disconnected, they're frustrated. So if you offer them that space, just like, I just want to learn more about you. I want to learn what you're looking for your child. It's uncomfortable.
Yes, and right, which is, people are so conditioned not to get something for free that
that's true.
I would assume that there are sales connected to it, right? We both talked about this. We absolutely hate entering our email in anything, right? Because we know the next thing is
somebody's going to contact us,
right? And I will not enter my phone number and stuff, right? So even if it was something that was done with the best of intentions, I think people might assume this is
That to me is the biggest turnoff. If you make me enter my email before you can answer my question that I just want to know, because I know you want to get my contact. I know you're going to call me. I'm not going to answer my phone. please don't bother me. So I just know from a personal, if I want to know, I'm going to contact you. Please don't hound me. That's
Sure.
my thing.
Christina just chimed in. She said, I think so too. You differentiate yourself with your personal connection and willingness to work with them, which is what we do for them as parenting partners. Not so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but what if it was an asset that led to something higher end? So there's like a video course or something that says, look, the decision you're making is critically important, and we want to make sure that you're equipped with all the information necessary to really plan this out. So we've created this 15-minute webinar. It's absolutely free. There's no gate. And it's just, it's planning your child's first 3 years of education or whatever. We sort of kind of like subtly plant that, but then they hop on, and and it's just you or Deneen, maybe we could create this, but it's asking them questions, what's important to you? How do you want to approach this? And we're subtly seeding Montessori, but we're asking them questions that kind of get them there. And the call to action at the end of the video is, by the way, we do this one-on-one. So if you'd like to hop on the phone with the trained educator, there's no cost or obligation whatsoever. And now they've seen your face, heard your voice, been watching you for 15 minutes, kind of have built a little bit of trust. And if there's a Calendly thing at the end of that, that's halfway between, where they are now in a tour. You get them on the phone and you do that consultant thing. I don't know.
It's a really interesting idea. One of the things I learned from the Bergamo website, because we modeled, frankly, our website on yours, was
We love it.
was that your director of admissions, her photo is on almost every single page.
Oh, Sylvia.
And so I had to talk about them to that.
Yeah.
But to me, that's so important. It's not just you will tour with somebody, but you will tour with Beth. And
Yeah.
gosh, she's friendly, and this is gonna be great. So there's that kind of humanizing. Those are really interesting ideas. We definitely
Right.
can go and think about it.
Right.
We'll play with them.
Yeah, the whole Google ad campaign that we're working on is, and we wanted to spread the word that he does work with people around not only the country, but the world.
Yeah.
But, so if you are interested in that, we've had a really good experience with him, and we'd like to pass on his information. It's going to be, so when people Google daycare, right? Or daycare near me.
Daycare near me, nanny, or childcare.
And then there will be a video that he's put together, and we're,
It's a video from our school, and what he does is it's a video about emotion. He gets the heart of an emotion of what people that are Googling daycare, nanny near me, or childcare are looking for. And we can't wait to see the video. I mean, the filming was spectacular, and we got wonderful shots, and we've got a parent that spoke to the emotion of she wants to go back to work, but she doesn't have confidence in childcare. She doesn't know where to put her child. Does she do daycare? Where does she put her child? And so many people that are Googling that are feeling guilty about going back to work. Where are they going to leave their child? They feel guilty about leaving their child. And this woman spoke to everything that is going to tap into a lot of these people that are Googling emotions and get them to look at this and then see this school and see what a difference this school is, and how, we have 4-to-1 teacher ratio, and it's or 1-to-4 teacher ratio. And I mean, it just, the video playing in the background of the B-roll is, going to have the kids in the background who did filming here, and then the A-roll is going to focus on her telling her story. And his videos are all about emotions, and this is just, it's going to be spectacular.
That's exciting. I can't wait to see it. Be sure.
Yeah, we can't either. We're supposed to get it at the end of January. And by the way, he is a parent here too as well, so he has a vested interest. His daughter goes here, so we got a deal on it as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
That's so cool. If y'all don't mind, I got to segue real quick because we've got a couple minutes left before the hour, and I want to present some of our assets. So last week we talked about some of our sales assets. And so Beth and Heidi, you will be my guinea pigs if you don't mind, and you can tell me whether or not these are worth putting out into the ether if they need a little bit more in the way of massaging. But the first one that we created is our pre-tour questions. And the idea here is that they sign up for a tour, and then they get an email right away. And I think the language is something like, hey, let's customize your experience. We want to make sure that when you come in, we know how to speak to you specifically. And so we then submit, and this is not the language for the parents. These are just the questions with some explanation behind the questions, but we submit, and I've got 5. The 5 are what's most important to you in a school? Do you have any specific concerns or fears? What criteria will you use to make your decision? What specifically attracted you to our school? And do you have any specific goals for your child that you would like to share? And the intention here is to kind of get people to lift the hood a little bit and maybe even solve the problem that we discussed earlier, which is, hey, some of the people that are coming aren't mission appropriate. Curious as to whether or not you'd use this.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. That looks fabulous. Yes.
And that gets us around the tuition. thing,
Yeah.
'cause this is another, if someone takes the time to fill this out, or versus someone that says, no, I'm not going to do this.
Right,
Right.
right, right. Somebody that's
It's a
really
level of
interested.
investment.
Yes, somebody that would fill this out would be really interested.
Awesome. I will turn this into a more formable asset. And then I've got some notes here as to why we say what we say. This is something I learned from another marketer, but when anybody asks, oh wait, no, it's not this one. Oh yeah, what specifically attracted you to our school? You're not necessarily asking for the reasons you think you're asking. What you want them to do is re-articulate why they like you, because now they're selling themselves because they want to justify the time that they're expending. I have the goal setting doc. Deneen brought up some really good pushback on goal specific based setting. Deneen, do you want to talk about that? Do you have enough time?
I do. Well, yes. So Cosm put this beautiful template together where you can really systematically move through goal setting with your families as an administrator. My pushback was this treads a very careful line with what your guides could be doing with your families, and also setting goals that may or may not be attainable based on the child's individual journey in our classrooms. So we also want to be careful that when we are setting goals that we're not doing something that is going to deter us from being able to follow the child at the particular time and give that flexibility. However, I do feel that it's still important to have these conversations with your families, because they need to be thinking about what they want to get out of this and move away from the academic conversation, because so often do they want to know, is my child getting everything that they need academically, especially in elementary and when you move into middle school? And can we shift the conversation back again to outcomes and benefits and skill building that we know are going to be successful because we are an aid to life, and what does that actually mean in our classrooms? So this can be a really good template to use, but I caution us on how we use it, because we don't want to put ourselves in a defensible position where we're only held accountable to these things. And hopefully, like, I don't, do you agree, disagree? I'm not really sure, but those were my thoughts on it.
One of the things that strikes me is to remind us about follow the child. And this is very focused on, what do you, the parent, want for your child? And I mean, that's a key piece of selling people, but it's also, you know what I mean? What I want for my kids when they're grown up may not be what they want for themselves. So that's, but at the same time, you know, how do you make this is the preschool we're going to sign up with if you don't appeal to a parent's dream for what they want their child to be, right?
Well, yeah, well,
There's a tension.
right, and I do find there's two different types of parents. Some are more concerned with this type of ideals, and then the others are very academic. They just want the academics. So it just depends on what the parents want. But this is ideal. I love this because I'm more on this than I am the academics.
I'm also realizing that we don't typically have admin family conversations unless there's a problem.
Right.
We have parent-teacher conferences 3 times a year, and that's where things like this happen. But we don't usually have admin meeting, right?
We have so many admin meetings with parents that are upset with something or another, you know, there's never.
We don't regularly, so this would be for radical. I mean, our families would kind of be, why do I suddenly meet with? You know, not that they couldn't be trained in all the changes.
No, that's good feedback for me to have. That's interesting. So maybe it's something
we're not used to this.
The guides.
Does Bergamo do this?
No, we thought of this last week. On the call live, and it was the idea here is post tour. What we want to do is start the process. So in order to close somebody, let's say that your enrollment packet had 5 pieces of information that you need. You have to fill out this form and get us your shot list and et cetera, et cetera. We wanted to make the very first one, we have to do our goal setting. And then hopefully, if possible, do it right there with them so that when you hand them that list, the first one's checked off. And now, again, that psychological narrative has sort of been catalyzed and they want to finish the rest of the list. And it doesn't have to be a goal setting worksheet. It could be anything. But one really strong piece of advice I have for everybody from a sales perspective is you want to connect your sales processes, because if they come in for a tour and then they leave, that gap here is when we lose them. But if they come in for a tour and then on the tour, we have them start filling out this document, that now we have this nice bridge built that, hopefully continues throughout the expiration of the process.
And if you can incorporate because every year they're going to be signing contracts, incorporate meetings that come back to, what it is that you're really looking for out of this style of education, then it makes parents really shift their idea of why we're choosing you every year.
Right.
Why, and you're a choice, right? It's because I'm choosing you over all my other options, and especially when you get to elementary, because they're hearing on the soccer field, they're hearing at coffee shops, they're hearing at dinner nights, all the homework that their friends' kids are getting, and all of the extracurricular activities, and all of the pullouts, and the music, and the art, all of that they're hearing. And so it's really tough to be an elementary parent when you're not truly understanding everything that elementary offers. So it starts to wear on you, and then you question your decision. But if, as an admin, you're going there every year and having that conversation and reaffirming why they're choosing you, that's just going to make your program so much stronger.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love that. I'm going to bring that to the team right away. Thank you.
Guys, my question about the hand thing is I'm wrestling with how committed do we want to be with them at the end of a tour?
Right.
Is that the point at which we want to start doing this? We're working with you and this is the next step and the investment. I mean, when we know that's who we want to work with, but
not everybody we want to work with.
Right. And I mean, I suppose you rely on the smell sense, and then you start saying, "Oh, we have a wait list."
Right.
But I'm just I'm thinking about this idea of building space for us to consider. One of the things I'm sorry to run over. One of the things we're thinking about is trying to prioritize our full day instead of just taking the first half day combinations that come and sign up. So I'm wary right this minute. And again, as you said, it depends on different schools and different needs and where you are. But right now, I'm wary about too much of this is off to the races.
I think that's a really good piece of feedback. I think what we should do is build our space into the facets of the process that we can control. So it's okay to get a parent to fill out your forms, follow your process, do everything that you want them to do. And then once they've reached the end, then say, okay, we need some time. We, of course, are building a wait list. We'll get back to you. And then now what's nice is you've given yourself the choice and the option. So you get to do this until you don't want to anymore, and then you get to put up the wall. But what I want to avoid is the points where, parents drop off organically. And I think that might be the line that we need to go and find is in the admissions process, because you're right. I can totally see how, wow, they're filling out paperwork and they're making deposits. I think the expectation needs to be managed that, hey, this is right now it's an application process. And like any other application process, and we're all used to this, you apply to a college, that doesn't necessarily mean that you get in, but like any other application process, at the end, we're just going to make sure that we're a right fit for each other. So you can keep walking down that process. And then now you've built your list. And now when it comes to prioritizing your full day or half day, you've actually given yourself, I think, a much greater advantage in doing so, because you've kind of built a catalog, like you have an inventory to choose from, as opposed to, kind of shooting from the hip and playing it by, according to who's in front of you at the moment. Is that a fair response and adequate?
Yes. My other question is just that I'm trying to be very thoughtful about what we ask for before a yes or no decision is made. So for example, our previous application used to have demographic, right? And we've now broken that out, and you will only get the demographic questionnaire after you've been enrolled.
Sure.
Because I don't want it to look like your answers cut you, right? So this is my concern about the goal setting type of thing, is then you've got parents going, oh my God, did I answer it wrong? Was the goals not good enough? Just I'm just trying to be thoughtful about that.
No, I think that's a great conversation. I do believe that that'll be something that maybe has more to do with your school's admissions process, or not more to do, but as much to do with your school's admissions process. There's a whole group of things that you need. And I think that demographic information, I think carving that out is really sharp. I never would have thought about that until I got sued. But that's so smart. And there's also a respect that we want to pay to people's time. So yeah, I think that, I mean, again, maybe this is just a quick, like, hey, here's everything that we have to have in order to make a decision. And here's everything that we'd like to have in order to enroll people. And let's get everybody to do this entire piece of the process first, and then let them know that there's a full stop.
Yeah.
And as long as we can manage that expectation, that's the other thing too, is we do this really well at my agency. We let people know this is where it's, you come in this way and we run you this way, and then we stop you this way. And then we do, and they know what the path looks like. I think it'd be, and I don't know if that's a graphic or not, that might be on a per school basis, but it'd be really cool for parents to, I mean, you have a map and you say, hey, you are here, and there's this and this and this and this, and you're responsible for these two and we're responsible for these two. And if people have a visual of that, I think it just kind of helps provide some clarity.
Yeah,
That would be great.
absolutely. I'll work on that.
Yeah.
Was this valuable, y'all? Was this helpful to do the hot seat thing?
Are you asking us, or you should ask your panelists, the other people who are?
Well,
I don't know how interesting it is for other people to listen to our school, but we've gotten a lot out of it.
We've gotten a ton.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being our first volunteers. That was great. I was just so thrilled to have you. And yeah, I think it was great. Deneen, any comments?
No, I hope we have more people that show up for these types of things, because I find it so valuable. Dialogue is incredibly important. And, we can, for example, last week we can create an asset and it's really great, but having workshops like these really helps us, get in tune with what it is that you need. And we're answering and helping you along the process. So this is so valuable for us as well as we continue to build out what Nido truly can offer. And it's a beautiful process, and dialogue is really key to that. So thank you, ladies, for doing that and being our volunteers, and really hopefully starting a chain effect later on, because we've got a lot more steps to go through, and opportunities will come.
We've got an exciting lineup of calls. This is just all absolutely critical stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh yeah, and what's the next one, Deneen? Do you remember? What are we talking about?
I don't. Can you pull it up? I don't.
I remember looking.
But I will say, while you're looking,
register myself for all of them.
So I do have Andy, Andrea, Luca from Integrating Montessori. She's going to be here on Tuesday, and she's going to talk specifically about self-care for Montessorians, because we can get so incredibly passionate about what we do, but we can burn ourselves out really, really, really fast. So she has spent the last month working on that with a group of Montessorians, heads of schools, guides, and they've come up with some really, really cool things over the past month. She's going to share that with us on Tuesday.
Terrific.
So definitely come to that if you can carve out time. But then I know we've got another one. We're starting step 4, right, on Thursday?
Yes, ma'am. Step 4 is the Montessori website. And I think that Lisa is tentative still, or has she confirmed?
We should check with her.
Yeah.
And Heidi, you definitely have done a bunch of stuff for your website too, so I'm sure you could add to the conversation as well.
I'm fascinated to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
And we did a revamp over the summer, and now based on what I've learned between now and the summer, I want to redo it all over again. So,
That's the way.
yeah, I really want to think through every page, and is it too much?
Yeah.
What's the simpler way? Get the information you need.
That's a good question to answer with websites too, is what's the simplest way to do this? Because it's so easy to just build, and then you...
I was going through your old recordings, and
we saw that one.
Stephen talked about Donald Miller's story brand, but a lot of websites are just overkill. It's too much information. So that's one of the things that's on my mind.
We have a coaching call on story brand somewhere too. Stephen did okay, that's
They're absolutely terrific. I shared it with my entire admin team.
Yeah, we loved it.
Yeah,
Nice.
because that was so
And that's
helpful.
step 1 of the marketing.
Yeah, and there's a progression.
one.
Don't skip ahead. There's a progression to it all. Yeah,
Exactly.
hugely valuable.
awesome. Well, we're so grateful to y'all for being here. Thank you. It's been almost an hour and a half. That's a big deal.
Well, thank
No,
you for
thank-
inviting us.
Yes,
And if you ever have a hot seat shortage, we'll volunteer again.
Lots of fun.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Not at all. And to our live attendees, Gabby, Jeanette, and Christina, thanks so much for being here. You add so much to the conversation. Your questions are so valuable. Super grateful to you. And if you're watching the recordings, you can always show up live. It's 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Just go to ninomarketing.com/coaching, and then you can register for the calls every Thursday. And we'll see y'all next Thursday.
Perfect.
Good.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye.